My husband was cheating with 2 women. I let them meet. I invited my husband's 2 mistresses to our anniversary dinner. Neither of them knew about the other. Neither of them knew I knew. And neither of them knew what I had planned. Picture this: a private dining room at the most expensive Italian restaurant in Los Angeles. 4 chairs around one table. My husband Deshawn sitting there in his best suit, that nervous smile plastered on his face. Then the door opens. A beautiful woman in a tight red dress walks in, confusion spreading across her face as she sees him sitting next to me. Before he can even open his mouth to lie, the door opens again. Another woman, this one in a navy pantsuit, holding a wrapped gift, freezes in the doorway. The air got so thick you could choke on it. A wine glass hit the floor and shattered. Deshawn's mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. One woman started crying. The other's face turned to stone. And me? I just smiled and said, "Now that everyone's here, let's talk about the truth." But let me tell you how I found out, because that's where this really begins. My name is Yvette Patterson. I'm 37 years old, a high school counselor in Los Angeles, and up until 3 weeks ago, I thought I had the perfect marriage. I mean, we had everything people dream about. Deshawn and I had been married for 12 years. We lived in a beautiful house in Baldwin Hills with our 10-year-old daughter Simone. He was a pharmaceutical sales rep, pulling in 6 figures. I had a career I loved, helping teenagers navigate the chaos of adolescence. We took family vacations to Hawaii. We hosted barbecues in our backyard. We went to church on Sundays. On the surface, we were the couple everyone envied. You know the type, the ones who post anniversary photos with captions like "still my best friend after all these years" with little heart emojis. That was us. Or at least that's what I thought we were. Looking back now, I can see the signs I missed. The way Deshawn started going to the gym more often. The upgraded cologne. The way he'd tilt his phone away from me when texting. But you know how it is when you trust someone completely. You don't see red flags, you see explanations. He's taking better care of himself. He's trying to impress clients. He's probably just texting his brother Javon about some basketball game. You create narratives that protect the person you love, even when those narratives are lies. 3 weeks ago, everything shattered. It was a Tuesday night. I remember because Simone had a science project due the next day, and we'd stayed up late building a model of the solar system. Deshawn had come home around 9, kissed us both on the forehead, said he was exhausted from client meetings all day. He took a shower and climbed into bed next to me around 11. I was reading a book, something about mindfulness that one of my colleagues recommended. He fell asleep almost immediately, snoring softly the way he always does. At 2 in the morning, his phone lit up on the nightstand. Now, I'm not the type of wife who goes through her husband's phone. I never had been. We had trust. We had boundaries. We had mutual respect. Or so I believed. But when that phone lit up at 2 in the morning, something in my gut twisted. You know that feeling, right? When your body knows something's wrong before your brain catches up. I looked over at the screen. Just a glance, that's all I meant to do. But what I saw made my blood run cold. The text preview read, "Last night was amazing, baby," followed by a heart emoji. The contact name was just saved as R. My heart started pounding so hard I thought it might wake him up. My hands went numb. For a second, I couldn't breathe. It felt like the bed was tilting, like the whole room was sliding sideways. You know that sensation when you're in an elevator and it drops too fast? That's what my entire world felt like in that moment. I wanted to shake him awake. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab that phone and smash it against the wall. But here's the thing about being a high school counselor. You spend all day, every day talking teenagers down from impulsive decisions. You learn that the first reaction is rarely the right reaction. You learn that evidence matters more than emotion when you're trying to get to the truth. So I didn't do any of those things. I lay there in the dark next to my husband of 12 years, listening to him snore peacefully while my mind raced at 1,000 miles an hour. Who was R? How long had this been going on? Was it just texting or was it more? And that phrase, "last night was amazing." What did they do last night? Last night, Deshawn said he had a late dinner meeting with a hospital administrator. He came home at 10:30 smelling like bourbon and steak. Had he been with her? I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I just stared at the ceiling, watching the shadows change as the hours passed, feeling like I was lying next to a stranger. The next morning, I got up and made breakfast like always. Scrambled eggs for Simone, coffee for Deshawn, oatmeal for myself. I packed Simone's lunch. I asked her about her science project. I kissed Deshawn goodbye when he left for work. I smiled. I functioned. But inside, I was screaming. As a counselor, I tell my students all the time, when you suspect something's wrong, don't act on suspicion alone. Gather information. Understand the full picture before you make decisions you can't take back. So that's exactly what I did. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a detective in my own marriage. I started with the credit card statements. Deshawn handled most of our finances, but we had a joint account for household expenses. I never had a reason to scrutinize every charge before. Now, I went through 6 months of statements line by line, and what I found made me sick. Charges at restaurants I'd never been to on nights he said he was working late. A hotel charge in Santa Monica from 2 months ago. The same weekend, he told me he was at a pharmaceutical conference in San Diego. Flowers from a boutique I didn't recognize, purchased 3 times in the past 4 months. I'd never received flowers during that time. Who were they for? Then there were the Venmo transactions. Small amounts, $50 here, $75 there, sent to accounts with female names I didn't know. The descriptions were vague. Dinner, thanks, for last time. Each one felt like a punch to the stomach. But the real evidence, the smoking gun, came when I searched his car. It was a Saturday morning. Deshawn had gone for a run, and Simone was at her friend's house for a playdate. I had maybe an hour alone. I went out to the garage, climbed into his Mercedes, and started looking. I checked the glove compartment first. Registration, insurance, nothing unusual. Then the center console. Sunglasses, mints, charging cables. And then, in a small compartment under the armrest, wrapped in a gym towel, I found it. A second phone. My hands were shaking as I pulled it out. It was an older iPhone, nothing fancy, but it was charged and active. I pressed the home button, and the screen lit up. No passcode. That's how confident he was that I'd never find it. The phone opened directly to his messages, and there they were. 2 text threads that would destroy everything I thought I knew about my husband. The first thread was labeled R. Scrolling through it was like reading someone else's love story, except the man in the story was my husband. Messages going back 8 months. Good morning texts. I miss you already. Can't wait to see you tonight. Photos I couldn't bring myself to look at closely. And then, the truly devastating part. He told her he was separated from me. Not divorced. Not single. Separated. He'd constructed an entire narrative where Yvette, his wife, was someone he was in the process of leaving. Someone who didn't understand him. Someone he'd grown apart from. In his messages to R, whose name I learned was Rochelle, he painted himself as a man trapped in a loveless marriage, just waiting for the right time to make the break official. The irony was suffocating. While he was telling her our marriage was over, he was coming home to me every night, kissing me, sleeping in our bed, playing with our daughter. But Rochelle wasn't the only one. The second thread was labeled T, and it was somehow even worse. This relationship had been going on for 6 months. In these messages, Deshawn didn't say he was separated. He told this woman, Tabitha, that he was divorced, that the split had been finalized last year, that he had joint custody of Simone, and was finally ready to start fresh with someone new. I sat in that car, in my own garage, reading through months of lies, and I felt something inside me break. Not my heart. That would come later. What broke in that moment was my ability to pretend. My ability to make excuses. My ability to see Deshawn as anything other than what he actually was, a liar. A cheater. A man living 3 separate lives with 3 separate women, and none of us knew about the others. Rochelle thought she was dating a separated man working through a difficult divorce. Tabitha thought she was building a future with a divorced single father. And me? I thought I was in a happy marriage. We were all wrong. I took photos of everything. Every message, every photo, every incriminating detail. Then I carefully put the phone back exactly where I found it, wrapped in the towel, hidden in the compartment. I went back inside, and when Deshawn came home from his run, sweaty and smiling, I handed him a bottle of water and asked how his workout went. He kissed my forehead and said it was great. Over the next few days, I dug deeper. I cross-referenced the messages with our credit card statements and his calendar. The picture that emerged was meticulous and cold. Deshawn had been orchestrating this for months, maybe longer. He had systems. He used the burner phone exclusively for Rochelle and Tabitha. He scheduled his time with surgical precision. Rochelle worked as a dental hygienist with regular daytime hours, so he saw her mostly during what he called client lunches or afternoon meetings. Tabitha was a real estate agent with a flexible schedule, so he saw her on evenings and weekends when he claimed to be at conferences or visiting his parents. And somehow, impossibly, he kept all the threads from tangling. Until now. I found out he'd been taking Rochelle to Vincenzo's. That detail nearly broke me. Vincenzo's was our restaurant. That's where Deshawn proposed to me 14 years ago. That's where we went every anniversary. That's where we celebrated every major milestone in our relationship. And he'd been taking another woman there, sitting in our booth, ordering from our menu, creating new memories in the space that was supposed to be sacred to us. That's when I knew I wasn't going to just confront him. I wasn't going to have a tearful conversation where he apologized and promised to change. I wasn't going to do couples therapy or try to rebuild trust. I was going to blow up his entire world the same way he'd blown up mine. But I needed help. I needed someone who could think clearly because I was drowning in rage and heartbreak. So I called the one person I knew would understand. Keisha Montgomery, my best friend since college. Also, conveniently, one of the best divorce attorneys in Los Angeles. What would you do if you discovered your spouse was living 3 separate lives? Would you confront them privately, or would you want everyone to face the truth together? Comment below and let me know, because what I did next changed everything. And if you're invested in this story, hit that subscribe button right now, because you need to hear what happened when all 3 of us finally sat down at the same table. I called Keisha the same day I found that burner phone. We met at this wine bar in West Hollywood, the kind of place with dim lighting and leather booths where you can have private conversations without anyone overhearing. I'd been holding everything together for 2 weeks, playing the perfect wife, while secretly documenting my husband's double life. But the moment I sat down across from Keisha and she looked at me with those knowing eyes, I felt the dam start to crack. She ordered us a bottle of Pinot Noir before I even said a word. That's how well she knows me. We've been friends since our sophomore year at USC, back when we were young and stupid and thought we had the world figured out. She went to law school. I got my counseling degree. She became one of the most ruthless divorce attorneys in Los Angeles. I became the person teenagers trusted with their secrets. Different paths, same loyalty. I slid my phone across the table to her. No words, just the photos I'd taken of Deshawn's burner phone messages. Hundreds of screenshots. Months of evidence. 2 women who had no idea I existed. Keisha scrolled through in silence, her face getting harder with each swipe. When she finally looked up at me, there was fire in her eyes. "Girl," she said, and her voice had that sharp edge it gets when she's about to tear someone apart in a courtroom, "we're going to take this man to the cleaners. I'm talking alimony, child support, full custody, the house, his retirement accounts, everything. When I'm done with him, he'll be lucky if he can afford a studio apartment in Van Nuys." That's exactly what I expected her to say. That's what any good divorce attorney would say. Protect the client, maximize the financial damage, make him pay in every way that matters legally. And for a moment I considered it. The clean route, the smart route. File the papers, present the evidence, let the courts handle it. But then I thought about Rochelle and Tabitha. 2 women who were being lied to just as thoroughly as I was. 2 women who thought they were building something real with a man who was playing all of us like instruments in some sick orchestra. 2 women who had no idea the others existed. And I thought about Deshawn, coming home every night with that easy smile, kissing our daughter goodnight, sliding into bed next to me like he hadn't just spent the afternoon in another woman's bed. The compartmentalization of it all. The coldness. The calculation. I looked at Keisha and said something that made her pause mid-sip. I don't just want to divorce him. I want him to face all three of us at the same time. She put her wine glass down slowly. Come again? I want to bring Rochelle and Tabitha together. I want Deshaun to sit at a table with all three of the women he's been lying to and watch his entire house of cards collapse in real time. Keisha leaned back in the booth, studying me. I could see her lawyer brain working, weighing the legal implications, the emotional fallout, the sheer audacity of what I was proposing. Then she shook her head and let out a low whistle. Girl, that's messy. Satisfying as hell, but messy. I leaned forward. He's been messy for 8 months. I'm just organizing the mess. That made her laugh, that sharp bark of a laugh she gets when someone says something that surprises her. She took another drink of wine, considering. I could see the moment she decided. Okay, I'm in. But we're doing this my way, which means we protect you first. You file for divorce before this dinner happens. We get the paperwork in order, we document everything, and we make sure that whatever explosion happens at that table, you walk away legally protected. Deal?
Deal.
And just like that, Operation Truth Bomb was born. That's what Keisha called it, and honestly, it was perfect. Because that's exactly what we were building, a truth bomb that would detonate right in the middle of Deshaun's carefully constructed lies. The genius of the plan came to me that same night, sitting in that wine bar with Keisha. Our 12th wedding anniversary was exactly 1 week away. We had reservations at Vincenzo's, the same restaurant where Deshaun had proposed to me all those years ago. The same restaurant he'd been taking Rochelle to for their dates. The poetry of it was almost too perfect. I would invite both mistresses to join us for dinner. But neither of them would know who the other was. Neither would know they were walking into an ambush.
And Deshaun?
He'd show up thinking he was having a romantic anniversary dinner with his wife, completely unaware that his 2 secret girlfriends were about to walk through the door. Keisha's eyes lit up when I explained it. That's diabolical. I love it. But how are you going to get them there without them figuring it out? That's where it got tricky. I couldn't just call them as myself. They'd never heard of me. I needed a cover story, a reason for them to show up that wouldn't raise suspicion. So I did what any desperate woman in the digital age would do. I created fake social media profiles. For Rochelle, I became Monica Chen, an event coordinator for a pharmaceutical industry appreciation dinner. I found her Instagram through Deshaun's burner phone, studied her profile, learned her interests. She posted a lot about her work at the dental office, about her cat, about her love of wine and jazz music. She seemed sweet, honestly. Young and a little naive, but sweet. It made what I was about to do hurt a little more, but I reminded myself she was sleeping with someone she thought was separated. She deserved the truth just as much as I did. I sent her a DM. Professional, friendly, brief. I told her I was organizing a surprise appreciation dinner for exceptional professionals in the pharmaceutical sales field, and Deshaun Patterson had been nominated by his colleagues. Would she be interested in attending as his guest to celebrate his achievements? The dinner would be at Vincenzo's, 7 p.m. next Saturday. She responded within an hour. She was thrilled. She'd love to be there to support him. Did I need her to bring anything? My hands were shaking as I typed back. Just yourself. It'll be an evening he'll never forget. For Tabitha, I became Jennifer Brooks, a colleague of Deshaun's from his regional office. Tabitha was harder to research. Her Instagram was more polished, more professional. She posted a lot of real estate listings, inspirational quotes about success and ambition, photos from luxury open houses. She was a hustler, I could tell. Driven.
Polished.
The kind of woman who probably thought she'd finally found a successful man to match her own ambition. I sent her a message explaining that several of us from Deshaun's office wanted to organize a surprise celebration for him. He just closed a major deal, and we thought he deserved recognition. Would she join us at Vincenzo's, 7 p.m. next Saturday, to help us surprise him? Her response came even faster than Rochelle's. She was absolutely delighted. She asked if she should bring a gift. What were his favorite things? Did he prefer bourbon or scotch? I almost laughed at that. Here was this woman, his girlfriend of 6 months, asking me, his wife of 12 years, what gifts my husband would like. The absurdity of it was almost too much. Over the next few days, I stayed in character with both of them. Rochelle asked what she should wear. I told her cocktail attire, something that would photograph well. Tabitha wanted to know if other colleagues were bringing their spouses. I told her it would be an intimate gathering, just a few special people in his life. The irony of that statement wasn't lost on me. And here's where it gets truly twisted. Both women wanted to help make the evening perfect for Deshawn. Rochelle asked if she should suggest a wine pairing to the restaurant. She knew his favorite Merlot because they'd been to Vincenzo's together 3 times. My stomach turned when she said that, but I told her that would be lovely. Tabitha asked if I thought he'd appreciate a personalized gift. She was thinking of getting him a nice watch, engraved with something meaningful. What did I think would resonate with him? I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her that I'd given him a watch for our 10th anniversary, that it was engraved with "Forever Yours," that he was probably wearing it right now, while texting her sweet nothings. But instead, I stayed in character. I told her that sounded perfect, that he'd appreciate the thought. Both of these women were helping me plan their own reckoning, and they had no idea. Meanwhile, Deshawn was walking around our house completely oblivious. He was actually excited about our anniversary dinner. He kept talking about how special it was going to be, how Vincenzo's always brought back memories of our early days together. He was planning what to wear. He asked if I'd made the reservation for 7 p.m. like we always did. I told him yes, everything was arranged. It would be an anniversary we'd never forget. What I didn't tell him was that he'd also told Rochelle he had to work late that afternoon. I'd seen the message on his burner phone. He was planning to see her from 3 to 5 p.m., then rush home, shower, change, and take me to dinner by 7. The audacity of it. The sheer calculated coldness of planning to be with your mistress hours before your anniversary dinner with your wife. But the best part? The part that almost made me laugh out loud when I discovered it? He told Tabitha he couldn't see her that weekend because he had to visit his sick mother in Palm Springs. His mother who lives in Atlanta and is perfectly healthy. The web of lies was so intricate, so elaborate, that I almost admired the effort it must have taken to keep it all straight. Almost. The week leading up to the dinner was the hardest of my entire life. I had to maintain the facade of normal married life, while knowing exactly what was coming. Every morning, I woke up next to Deshawn and looked at him sleeping peacefully, and I wondered how he did it. How did he compartmentalize so completely? How did he kiss me goodbye in the morning, spend his lunch hour with Rochelle, text Tabitha's sweet nothings in the afternoon, and then come home and play with Simone like he was father of the year? I'd lie there in the dark, listening to him breathe, and feel like I was sleeping next to a stranger. Because I was. The man I thought I married didn't exist. That man was faithful, honest, present. This man was a performance artist, and I'd been his most devoted audience member. But the absolute hardest part wasn't dealing with Deshawn. It was protecting Simone. My baby girl, my 10-year-old daughter, who still believed her parents had the perfect marriage. She'd come home from school and tell me about her day, and I'd help her with her homework like always, make her favorite snacks, read to her before bed. And the whole time, I was dying inside. Because I knew that in a few days, her entire world was going to change. She'd come home to a different reality. A reality where Daddy didn't live with us anymore. Where Mommy and Daddy weren't together. Where the family she'd known her entire life was broken. One night, she caught me crying in the kitchen. I thought I'd been so careful, waiting until she was asleep to let myself fall apart. But she'd come downstairs for water and found me standing at the sink, tears streaming down my face. "Mommy, why are you sad?"
My heart shattered.
I wiped my face quickly and knelt down to her level. "I'm okay, baby. Sometimes grown-ups just have hard days." She hugged me, this tiny fierce hug, and whispered, "It's okay to be sad sometimes. That's what you always tell me." Using my own counseling advice against me, I held her tight and promised myself that whatever happened, I'd protect her as much as I could. She didn't deserve to be collateral damage in her father's mess. As the week went on, I started to question everything. Was I doing the right thing? Was public humiliation really the answer? Wouldn't it be cleaner, kinder, more dignified to just file for divorce quietly and move on with my life? I played out both scenarios in my head 1,000 times. The quiet divorce meant less drama, less pain, less spectacle. But it also meant Rochelle and Tabitha would never know the truth. They'd keep dating Deshawn, keep believing his lies, keep being deceived until he eventually discarded them too. Because that's what men like him do. They don't stop until they're forced to face consequences.
And Deshawn?
He'd get to control the narrative. He'd tell Rochelle and Tabitha some sob story about his terrible ex-wife. He'd paint himself as the victim. He'd never have to sit in the discomfort of watching all his lies collide in real time. That's when I knew I had to go through with it. Not for revenge, though I won't lie and say that wasn't part of it. But for truth. For accountability. For the simple fact that secrets only have power when they stay hidden. I needed one more person's support before I could fully commit. Someone whose opinion mattered almost as much as Keisha's. So I called Javon, Deshawn's younger brother. Javon and I had always been close. He was the best man at our wedding. He's Simone's favorite uncle. He's the kind of guy who shows up when you need help moving, who remembers birthdays, who tells terrible jokes at family gatherings. Good guy through and through. We met for coffee at this place near his apartment in Inglewood. I told him everything. I showed him the evidence. I watched his face cycle through shock, anger, disappointment, and finally resignation. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. Then he said something that surprised me. I suspected something was off. My head snapped up. What? He looked uncomfortable, guilty even. A few months ago, I saw him at a restaurant in Santa Monica with a woman who wasn't you. He saw me too, and later he told me it was a client dinner. But the way he was looking at her, the way she was touching his arm, it didn't feel professional. I didn't want to believe it, so I convinced myself I was reading into things. I should have said something to you. I'm sorry. I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. Don't apologize. You didn't know for sure, and it's not your responsibility to police your brother's marriage. But your family too, he said, and his voice cracked a little. You and Simone. You've always been family to me. And what he's doing, he shook his head. He needs to face what he's done. All of it. That conversation gave me the final push I needed. If even Deshawn's own brother thought he deserved to be confronted, then I wasn't crazy. I wasn't being petty or vindictive. I was simply refusing to let lies live in darkness. The day before the dinner, I went to Vincenzo's to finalize the details. I'd called ahead and reserved their private dining room, the one they usually save for business meetings or intimate celebrations. I told them I was planning a surprise party and needed everything to be perfect. The manager, a kind older Italian man named Paolo, showed me the room. It was elegant and intimate, with dark wood paneling and soft lighting. In the center was a round table set for four. 4 chairs. 4 place settings. 4 wine glasses. Perfect for the most uncomfortable double date in history. Paolo asked if I needed any special decorations. Flowers, maybe? Candles? I almost laughed. What do you decorate with when you're planning to detonate someone's entire life? Balloons that say, "Congratulations, you're a liar?" I told him simple and elegant would be fine. He asked what we were celebrating. The truth, I said. We're celebrating the truth. He looked confused but nodded politely. I left the restaurant and sat in my car for 20 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel, breathing slowly. Tomorrow night, everything would change. When I got home, Deshawn was in the living room playing a video game with Simone. They were laughing, trash-talking each other, completely absorbed in their little world. For a moment, I let myself imagine what it would be like if I just let it go. If I pretended I never found that phone. If I lived in willful ignorance for the sake of preserving this moment. But that wasn't living. That was just a slower kind of dying. That night, I filed the divorce papers. Keisha had drawn them up earlier in the week, and I'd been carrying them around in my bag, waiting for the right moment. I signed my name on every required line, scanned them, and emailed them to Keisha. She'd file them officially on Monday, but the act of signing felt like crossing a threshold I could never uncross. I was really doing this. I climbed into bed next to Deshaun that night, and he pulled me close like he always did, kissing my shoulder, whispering that he loved me. I didn't say it back. I just closed my eyes and counted down the hours until tomorrow. Until the moment when 3 women and 1 man would sit down at a table together, and the truth would finally come to light. Should I have gone through with it? Or was this taking things too far? Let me know what you think in the comments, because tomorrow night's dinner is about to change everything. And if you want to see how this all plays out, make sure you subscribe right now, because the confrontation you've been waiting for is coming next, and trust me, you don't want to miss what happens when all 3 of us finally meet face to face. The day of our 12th anniversary arrived, and I woke up with a strange sense of calm. You know that feeling right before something massive happens? When your body knows you've crossed the point of no return, so the anxiety just stops? That's where I was. No more second-guessing. No more wondering if I was doing the right thing. The truth was about to detonate, and I was going to be standing at ground zero when it did. I spent the morning going through the motions. Made breakfast for Simone. Packed her overnight bag because she was staying at my mother's house. I told her mommy and daddy needed a special grown-up evening. She was so excited, thinking we were having some romantic anniversary night. If only she knew. After I dropped Simone off, I came home to an empty house. Deshaun had texted saying he had some last-minute work things to handle before dinner. Work things.
Right.
I knew exactly what work things meant. According to the messages I'd seen on his burner phone, he was meeting Rochelle at a hotel in Culver City at 3 p.m. A little pre-anniversary rendezvous before he came home to shower and take his wife to dinner. The compartmentalization was staggering.
Who does that?
Who sleeps with their mistress and then shows up hours later to celebrate 12 years of marriage. I spent the afternoon getting ready, and I treated it like preparation for battle. I chose the dress Deshaun loved most, this deep burgundy number that hugged every curve, the one he bought me for my birthday last year. The one he always said made me look like I could run the world. I put it on and looked at myself in the mirror, and I thought, today, I am running the world. My world. And I'm taking back every piece of it that he stole. I did my makeup carefully. Foundation like armor. Eyeliner sharp enough to cut. Lipstick the color of wine and war. Every stroke of the brush was a reminder. You are not the victim in this story. You are the reckoning. My hands were steady as I put on my earrings. The diamond studs Deshaun gave me on our 10th anniversary. I wondered if Rochelle and Tabitha were wearing their matching pieces right now. The thought almost made me laugh. I arrived at Vincenzo's at 6:45, 15 minutes early. Paolo, the manager, greeted me warmly and led me to the private dining room. It looked exactly as I'd requested. 1 round table. 4 place settings. Soft lighting that felt intimate and exposing all at once. He asked if I needed anything else, and I told him just to send everyone back when they arrived. No interruptions during dinner. We needed privacy. He nodded, probably thinking this was some kind of romantic surprise. If only. I sat down at the table and tried to control my breathing. My hands were shaking now, the adrenaline finally catching up to me. This was it. In a few minutes, my entire carefully constructed plan would either work perfectly or explode in ways I couldn't predict. But my mind was clear. Clearer than it had been in weeks. I knew what I was doing. I knew why I was doing it. And I was ready. At 7 p.m. exactly, Deshaun walked in. He looked good, I'll give him that. He was wearing the navy suit I'd bought him last Christmas, the one that made his shoulders look broader. His shoes were polished. His cologne filled the room, that expensive stuff he only wore on special occasions. He was smiling, that easy, confident smile that used to make my heart skip. Now it just made me cold. "There's my beautiful wife," he said, leaning down to kiss my cheek. I let him. I smiled. I played the part. He sat down across from me, and that's when I noticed it. The smell. Underneath his cologne was another scent.
Perfume.
Light and floral. Rochelle's perfume. He'd literally come straight from her bed to our anniversary dinner, and he hadn't even bothered to shower thoroughly enough to hide it. The disrespect was breathtaking. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Happy anniversary, baby. 12 years with the love of my life. He opened it, and inside was a stunning necklace. White gold with a diamond pendant. Delicate and beautiful and expensive. A gilt gift if I'd ever seen one. Deshawn, it's gorgeous, I said, and I meant it. It was gorgeous. And it was probably purchased with our joint credit card. I was literally paying for my own gilt gift. He stood up and came around to put it on me, his fingers brushing my neck as he fastened the clasp. I felt nothing. No warmth. No affection. Just the clinical observation that this man was a stranger wearing my husband's face. You deserve the world, he said, sitting back down. I smiled. I'm about to get it. He didn't catch the double meaning. He just grinned and picked up his menu. We ordered drinks. Wine for me, bourbon for him. We made small talk about work, about Simone, about whether we should take a vacation this summer. He was completely relaxed, completely comfortable, completely oblivious. I watched the clock. 7:10, 7:12, 7:14. At 7:15, I saw movement in the doorway. Rochelle had arrived. I watched as Paolo directed her toward our private room, saw the confusion on her face as she followed him. She was beautiful, I'll give her that. 28 years old with smooth dark skin and long braids that cascaded down her back. She was wearing a tight red dress that left very little to the imagination, and heels so high I didn't know how she was walking. She looked young, hopeful, excited. She had no idea what she was walking into. She appeared in the doorway of our private room, and I watched her face change as she processed the scene. Deshawn sitting at a table with the woman. An intimate table. Candles.
Wine.
This wasn't the pharmaceutical appreciation dinner she'd been expecting. She froze. Deshawn looked up, following my gaze, and I watched all the color drain from his face. His mouth opened. No sound came out. For maybe the first time in his lying life, Deshawn Patterson had no words. I stood up smoothly, extending my hand toward Rochelle like we were at a business meeting. You must be Rochelle. I'm Yvette. Please come sit down. Her eyes darted between me and Deshawn, trying to piece together what was happening. She took a tentative step into the room, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. I think there's been some mistake, she said, her voice small. I was told this was a dinner for pharmaceutical professionals, I finished. Yes, I know. I sent you that invitation. Please sit. I gestured to the chair next to mine. She didn't move. She was looking at Deshawn now, and I could see the wheels turning in her head. Something was very wrong. Deshawn? Her voice cracked a little. What's going on? Who is this? Deshawn finally found his voice, and of course, he went straight to lying. Rochelle, this is my... Wait, Rochelle interrupted, and I could see her trying to construct a reality that made sense. Are you a sister? He mentioned his sister might be. I'm his wife. 2 words. That's all it took. 2 words and Rochelle's entire world shattered. I watched it happen in real time. The confusion on her face morphed into shock, then understanding, then devastation. Her eyes filled with tears. Wife, she whispered. But you said you were separated. You said you were getting divorced. You said... Deshawn stood up, so fast his chair scraped against the floor. Baby, I can explain. I cut him off, my voice sharp as glass. Save it. We're still waiting for one more guest. The room went silent. Rochelle stared at me. Deshawn stared at me. And I just smiled and checked my watch. 7:18. Tabitha would be here any minute. One more. Rochelle's voice was shaking now. What do you mean one more? Sit down, Rochelle, I said gently. Trust me, you're going to want to be sitting for this. She sank into the chair like her legs couldn't hold her anymore. Tears were streaming down her face, ruining her carefully applied makeup. Deshawn was standing between us, his mouth opening and closing, trying to figure out which fire to put out first. Yvette, what are you doing? His voice had an edge of panic now. This is insane. Let me talk to you privately. Let me explain.
Sit down.
Something in my tone made him comply. He dropped back into his chair, his hands gripping the edge of the table. I'd never seen him look scared before. It was oddly satisfying. We sat there in tense silence, the only sound Rochelle's quiet crying. I sipped my wine. Deshawn's bourbon sat untouched. And we waited. At 7:22, Tabitha arrived. I heard Paolo's voice in the hallway first, directing her toward our room. Then I saw her. Tabitha Vaughn, 34-year-old real estate agent, poised and professional in a navy pantsuit that probably cost more than Rochelle's entire outfit. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek bun. She wore minimal jewelry. She carried herself like a woman who knew her worth. She also carried a wrapped gift, beautifully done with silver paper and a white ribbon. She walked into the room with a confident smile that faltered the moment she took in the scene. Her eyes moved from me to Deshawn to Rochelle, whose face was streaked with mascara and tears. The tension in the room was thick enough to choke on. This isn't what I expected," Tabitha said slowly, her professional smile flickering like a dying light bulb. Rochelle spoke first, her voice hoarse. "Who is this?" I gestured to the empty fourth chair. "Tabitha, please join us. I'm Yvette, Deshawn's wife of 12 years. This is Rochelle. And I believe you already know Deshawn." Tabitha's face went very still. I watched her process my words, saw the moment they landed.
Wife. Deshawn, you said you were divorced.
"You told me the divorce was finalized over a year ago." Rochelle's head snapped toward Tabitha, so fast I thought she'd get whiplash. "He told you that too?" "He told me he was separated." And there it was. The moment of collision. Both women staring at each other, then at Deshawn, then back at each other. The realization cascading across both their faces like dominoes falling. They'd both been lied to. They'd both been deceived. And they'd both been completely unaware of each other's existence. Deshawn tried to stand, probably thinking he could somehow talk his way out of this, but my voice stopped him cold.
"Sit down."
He sat. And this time he didn't argue. Tabitha remained standing in the doorway, still holding her wrapped gift. She looked like she was deciding whether to run or stay. I made the decision for her. "Tabitha, I know this is shocking, but please sit. You deserve to hear the truth. You both do." Something in my voice must have reached her, because she walked slowly to the table and sat down in the fourth chair. She placed the gift on the table in front of her, and we all stared at it for a moment. A celebration gift for a celebration that had turned into a funeral. I looked around the table. For people. 3 of us had been living in completely different realities, all because of the fourth person sitting here. And now, finally, we were all going to exist in the same truth. I pulled out my phone and set it on the table. I'd prepared for this. Screenshots, receipts, credit card statements, photos of the burner phone messages. Everything organized in a folder labeled Evidence. "Let me tell you what's been happening," I began, and my voice was steady and clear. "Deshawn has been living 3 separate lives. With me, he's the devoted husband and father, married for 12 years with a 10-year-old daughter. With you, Rochelle, he's the lonely separated man working through a difficult divorce, looking for real connection. And with you, Tabitha, he's the divorced single father ready for a fresh start with someone new." I swiped through my phone and turned it so they could see. 8 months, Rochelle. He's been seeing you for 8 months. Here are the messages where he told you he was separated. Here are the hotel charges from your dates. Here's the receipt from Vincenzo's, this very restaurant, where he brought you on your 3-month anniversary. Rochelle's face crumpled as she looked at the evidence. She put her hand over her mouth, like she might be sick. I turned to Tabitha. 6 months with you. Here are the messages where he said his divorce was finalized last year. Here's the receipt for the necklace he gave you for Christmas, the one that matches the bracelet he gave Rochelle, and the earrings he gave me. It's a set. He bought a jewelry set and distributed it among his 3 women like we were branches of the same corporation. Tabitha's professional composure cracked. Her jaw tightened, and her eyes filled with fury. "And here's the kicker," I continued. "Look at these dates. March 15th, he had lunch with Rochelle at 1 p.m. Dinner with Tabitha at 7 p.m.
Came home to me at 11.
March 22nd. He spent the afternoon with Tabitha, told me he was at a work conference, but actually went to Rochelle's apartment afterward before coming home. April 3rd. Stop. Deshawn's voice was hoarse. Just stop.
Why?
I looked at him directly for the first time since this started. Does the truth hurt when it's laid out like this? When you can't compartmentalize it anymore? He tried denial first. Yvette, you're twisting things. These women, they pursued me. I made mistakes, yes, but… Pursued you? Rochelle's voice cut through his excuses like a knife. You came to my office every week for 6 months before I agreed to go out with you. You sent flowers. You left notes. You told me I was special, that you'd been so lonely, that meeting me felt like fate. He told me the exact same thing, Tabitha said quietly, and her voice was deadly calm. Word for word. At the open house. He said I was special, that he'd been lonely, that meeting me felt like fate. I nodded. Same script. Different actresses. He's been running the same con on all of us. Deshawn tried minimization next. Look, I messed up. I admit that. But Yvette, you were emotionally distant. We barely talked anymore. I was lonely in my own marriage. Don't you dare, I said, and there was so much venom in my voice that he actually flinched. Don't you dare blame me for your choices. I was distant because I was working 50-hour weeks and raising our daughter while you were apparently running a casting call for replacement wives. He switched tactics again, turning to Rochelle. You knew I was married. You knew what this was. Rochelle's eyes went wide. I knew you were separated. You told me you were filing for divorce. You showed me apartment listings and talked about your new place. You said once the divorce was final, we could. Her voice broke. Then he turned to Tabitha. And you made it clear you weren't looking for anything serious. You said you wanted to keep things casual. Tabitha laughed, but there was no humor in it. I said that on our first date because I'd been hurt before and wanted to take things slow. By month 3, we were talking about moving in together. You looked at houses with me, Deshawn. You talked about our future. You met my mother. He met your mother? Rochelle turned to stare at Tabitha. He told me he wasn't ready to meet families yet because his divorce was so fresh and raw. He's been having Sunday dinner with my family for 2 months, Tabitha said flatly. The absurdity of it was almost funny. Almost. Deshawn had been so busy maintaining 3 different storylines that he'd gotten sloppy. And now, with all 3 of us in the same room, the contradictions were impossible to ignore. The conversation shifted then. Something changed in the air. Rochelle and Tabitha stopped looking at Deshawn and started looking at each other. And I watched as something unexpected happened. Recognition. Understanding. Solidarity. How did he pursue you? Rochelle asked Tabitha, and there was genuine curiosity in her voice. Tabitha took a breath. I was hosting an open house in Brentwood. High-end property. He came through, said he was looking to upgrade now that his divorce was final. He was charming, asked good questions about the neighborhood, the schools. Then he asked if I'd be willing to show him other properties over coffee. It felt professional at first, but he was so attentive. He remembered everything I said. Asked about my life, my dreams. Made me feel seen. Rochelle nodded slowly. He came to my dental office for a cleaning. Kept scheduling appointments, always requesting me specifically. He'd stay after to chat, ask about my day. Brought me coffee once. Then twice. Then he asked me to dinner, said he'd been wanting to ask for months, but his situation was complicated. Said he was separated but still living with his wife for their daughter's sake until the divorce went through. He told me his ex-wife was vindictive, Tabitha said. That she was making the custody situation difficult. That he was trying to be the bigger person for his daughter's sake. He told me she was emotionally abusive, Rochelle added. That she'd checked out of the marriage years ago. They both looked at me then, and I saw something in their eyes. Not hostility, not blame, but questions.
Who was I really?
Was I the villain Deshawn had painted, or was I another victim in his gallery of lies? I'm not vindictive, I said quietly. I'm not emotionally abusive. I didn't check out of our marriage. I was present. I was faithful. I was building a life with someone I thought was my partner. And the whole time, he was building 2 other lives with 2 other women. The compliments, Rochelle said suddenly. Did he tell you that you had the most beautiful smile he'd ever seen? Tabitha's eyes widened.
Yes.
He said that on our 2nd date. He said that to me too, I said. On our 3rd date. 20 years ago. Same line. Did he take you to Vincenzo's? Rochelle asked Tabitha. 3 times, Tabitha confirmed. Same, Rochelle whispered. It's where he proposed to me, I said. 14 years ago. It's been our place ever since. Or so I thought. The shared experiences kept coming. The same restaurants. The same date activities. The same gifts. Rochelle mentioned the bracelet he'd given her for her birthday in June. Tabitha described the necklace she'd received for Christmas. I looked at both pieces in my mind and realized with sickening clarity that they matched my anniversary earrings perfectly. He bought a jewelry set, I said out loud. From that boutique on Melrose. I saw the charge on our credit card months ago. $850. I thought it was for our anniversary, but he bought the whole set and parceled it out to all 3 of us. The efficiency of his deception was almost impressive. Almost. If it wasn't so grotesque. Tabitha let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. So we're all wearing matching jewelry? Like we're some kind of twisted sorority. The sisters of being played by Deshawn Patterson. Rochelle said bitterly. And then something unexpected happened. We laughed. All 3 of us. It was dark, bitter laughter, but it was bonding. Because in that moment, we weren't enemies. We weren't competing for the same man. We were 3 women who'd been systematically deceived by someone we'd trusted, and we were recognizing each other as allies rather than adversaries. Deshawn, meanwhile, had gone quiet. He'd tried every manipulation tactic in his arsenal: denial, minimization, blame-shifting, gaslighting, and none of it had worked. We weren't turning on each other. We were turning toward each other. He'd lost control of the narrative completely. Tabitha looked at him then, and her voice was ice. Do we know about all of them? Or are there more? Deshawn's face went pale. There's no one else. I swear. Your swearing doesn't mean much right now, I said. Rochelle wiped her eyes, smearing her mascara even more. I can't believe I fell for this. I can't believe I was so stupid. You weren't stupid, I told her, and I meant it. You were lied to by someone who's apparently made lying into an art form. That's not your fault. I rearranged my entire life, Tabitha said, and her voice cracked for the first time. I turned down a job opportunity in San Francisco because he said he couldn't do long distance. I introduced him to my family. I started thinking about. She stopped, shaking her head. God, I was thinking about marriage, children, a future. So was I, Rochelle whispered. I had that future, I said. 12 years of it. And I'm still discovering it was all built on lies. Deshawn made one final desperate play. He stood up, and his face had transformed from scared to angry. Self-righteous anger, the kind that manipulators use when they've been backed into a corner. He pointed at me, his voice rising. After everything I provided for you and Simone, this is how you repay me? Public humiliation? Bringing these women here to gang up on me? I worked my ass off to give you that house, that life. I paid for everything. And you repay me by orchestrating this ambush. The audacity of his words hit like a physical blow. All 3 of us stared at him in stunned silence. He actually thought he was the victim here. After months of calculated deception, after building 3 separate lives based on lies, after manipulating 3 women simultaneously, he thought we were being unfair to him. The narcissism was breathtaking. Can you believe what he just said? After everything, the lies, the cheating, the manipulation, he really tried to claim he was the victim because he provided for his family. As if paying bills gave him the right to destroy 3 women's trust and hearts. If you're as shocked as I was, hit that subscribe button right now because you need to hear what I said next. What we all said next. Because this man was about to learn that his money couldn't buy him out of the truth. Deshawn's words hung in the air like poison gas. After everything I've provided for you and Simone, this is how you repay me? Public humiliation. Something inside me snapped. Not in a loud, explosive way. Not in a screaming, throwing things kind of way.
It was quieter than that.
Colder. Like a door closing on a room I would never enter again. I stood up slowly, and for the first time all evening, I really looked at him.
Not at the man I thought I married.
Not at the father of my child, but at the stranger sitting across from me. The man who'd just had the audacity to play the victim after months of systematic deception. When I spoke, my voice was steady, but everything I'd been holding back for weeks came pouring out. You want to talk about what you've provided, Deshawn?
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about how I supported you through your career changes, through every promotion you chased, through every work trip that apparently wasn't actually work. Let's talk about how I put my own career advancement on hold so you could take that regional sales position that required more travel. More travel that I now know meant more time with other women. My voice was rising despite my efforts to stay calm. 12 years of trust, of partnership, of believing in us. It was all flooding back. Let's talk about the nights I waited up for you. Worried something had happened, checking my phone every 5 minutes, calling hospitals because you weren't answering and I thought maybe you'd been in an accident. But you weren't in an accident, were you? You were with them. You were in hotel rooms, in restaurants, in beds that weren't ours, while I was at home terrified that something terrible had happened to you. Deshawn opened his mouth, but I held up my hand. I'm not finished. You want to talk about what you've provided? I provided you with trust, with loyalty, with a home where you were loved unconditionally. I provided you with a daughter who thinks you hung the moon. I provided you with a partner who believed in you, who supported your dreams, who defended you when other people doubted you. And what did you provide me with? I paused, letting the question hang.
Lies.
You provided me with lies. Every I love you was a lie. Every anniversary, every birthday, every moment you held me and told me I was your everything, lies. Because if I was your everything, what were they? What was Rochelle? What was Tabitha? Were they your everything too? Or were we all just what? Pieces of a life you were assembling like some kind of sick puzzle. My voice cracked then, the emotion I'd been holding back finally breaking through. Do you know what the worst part is? It's not even the cheating. It's the intimacy. It's knowing that every intimate moment we shared, every vulnerable conversation, every time I opened my heart to you, those moments were sandwiched between your other lives. You'd come home from Rochelle's bed and climb into mine. You'd whisper things to me that you probably whispered to Tabitha the night before. You made me feel special, chosen, loved, and the whole time, you were making 2 other women feel exactly the same way. Tears were streaming down my face now, but I didn't wipe them away. Let him see what he'd done. Let him witness the devastation he'd caused. And Simone. God, Deshawn, Simone. Our 10-year-old daughter who still believes in fairy tales and happy endings. How do I explain this to her? How do I tell her that Daddy won't be living with us anymore? That Mommy and Daddy aren't going to be together? How do I teach her about love and commitment and trust when her father, the first man she ever loved, embodied none of those things? My voice broke completely on those last words. The thought of Simone's face when she learned the truth, the confusion and hurt in her eyes, the questions she'd ask that I wouldn't know how to answer, it was too much. But then something shifted inside me. The grief transformed into something harder, stronger. I wiped my tears and straightened my spine. But you know what? She's going to learn something even more important. She's going to learn that her mother doesn't accept disrespect. That her mother chooses honesty over comfort. That her mother would rather be alone than be lied to. And maybe that's the most important lesson I can teach her. That you don't stay in situations that diminish you, no matter how comfortable they are, no matter how much someone provides. I turned then, looking at Rochelle and Tabitha. Both of them were crying too, their faces mirrors of pain and recognition. And I want you both to know something, I said, my voice gentler now. I'm not angry at you. I know some women would be. I know the easy thing would be to blame you, to call you names, to make you the villains in this story. But you're not. You're victims. Just like me. You were lied to just as thoroughly, just as systematically. Your pain is real. Your feelings were real. What he made you believe was real, until it wasn't. Rochelle's voice was so small when she spoke. I really thought he loved me. I know, I said. Tabitha's voice was harder, but I could hear the hurt underneath. I rearranged my entire life for him. I turned down opportunities. I changed my plans. I built a future in my head that included him. That's what he does, I said, and I realized this truth as I spoke it. That's his gift, if you can call it that. He makes you feel like you're his entire world while he's simultaneously building other worlds with other women. He's not just a cheater. He's an architect of false realities. And we all lived in our separate reality shows, never knowing the others existed. There was a moment then, a beat of shared understanding among the three of us. We weren't enemies. We weren't rivals. We were survivors of the same man's betrayal. We were women who'd been manipulated by someone we trusted, and in that shared experience, there was a strange kind of solidarity. Deshawn had been silent during all of this, his face cycling through emotions I couldn't quite read. But I wasn't done yet. There was one more thing I needed to say, one more truth bomb to drop. Keisha filed divorce papers 3 days ago, I said, and I watched his face pale. Everything's documented. The burner phone messages, the credit card statements, the hotel charges, all of it. Your affairs are grounds for favorable terms in California, so you might want to get yourself a good lawyer. Actually, you might want to get yourself several good lawyers, because this is going to get expensive for you. I pulled out a folder I'd been keeping in my purse. Copies of everything. I set it on the table in front of him. I've also taken steps to protect Simone and our assets. The joint accounts are frozen pending divorce proceedings. I've documented every shared expense and every personal expense you charged to our joint cards. Those hotel rooms? Those dinners? Those gifts for your girlfriends? All purchased with marital funds. My lawyer is going to have a field day with this. Deshawn's face was ashen now. The reality of consequences was finally sinking in. This wasn't just an emotional confrontation he could manipulate his way out of. This was legal. This was financial. This was permanent. I turned to Rochelle and Tabitha. I'm not angry at you, I repeated. But I need to tell you something important. If he lied about you too, what else did he lie about? When's the last time either of you got tested? Rochelle's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God. I'm getting tested next week, I said quietly. I'd recommend you both do the same. And I know it's not my place to tell you what to do, but I'd also recommend cutting all contact with him. Block his number. Block his social media. Don't give him the opportunity to manipulate you back into his orbit, because he will try. Men like him always try. That's when Deshawn seemed to fully grasp the totality of his collapse. Everything was falling apart at once. His marriage, his relationships, his reputation, his financial security, all of it crumbling in real time. And he did exactly what I expected him to do. He cried. Not real tears of remorse, but the performative tears of a man who'd just realized he was losing. He reached for me across the table, his voice breaking. Yvette, please. Baby, please. I'm sick. I think I might be a sex addict. I need help. I need therapy. But I can change. I can fix this.
Just give me another chance.
Think about Simone. Think about our family.
We can work through this.
We can go to counseling. I'll do whatever it takes. Just please, please don't give up on us. The classic playbook of a cornered cheater. Claim addiction. Promise therapy. Invoke the children. Make desperate appeals to the history you share. I'd counseled enough teenagers through their parents' divorces to recognize every manipulation tactic in the book. No, I said simply. The answer is no. Rochelle stood up then, her chair scraping against the floor. Her face was streaked with makeup and tears, but there was steel in her voice when she spoke. I'm done. Lose my number. Block me on everything. And if you ever show up at my dental office again, I'll call security. She grabbed her purse and walked toward the door, but before she left, she stopped next to me. She pulled out her phone and held it out. Can I get your number? Just in case I need to. I don't know. Talk to someone who understands. I took her phone and typed in my number. Call anytime. She nodded, squeezed my shoulder, and left. Tabitha stood next then, and her professional composure was back in place, but her eyes were ice cold when she looked at Deshawn. You're pathetic. You know that? Not because you cheated. Not even because you lied. But because you had 3 women who genuinely cared about you, who were building real things with you, and you treated all of us like we were interchangeable parts in your ego machine. That's pathetic. And I hope one day you figure out what you lost, but by then, it'll be too late. She picked up the wrapped gift she'd brought, the watch she'd planned to give him, and dropped it in the trash can by the door. The symbolism wasn't subtle. Don't ever contact me again, she said. Then she turned to me. Thank you. For the truth. Even though it hurts like hell, I needed to know. I know, I said. She pulled out a business card and handed it to me. If you need anything, a real estate agent when you're ready to sell the house, or just someone to get coffee with who understands, call me. I took the card. She nodded once and left. And then it was just the 2 of us. Me and Deshawn. 12 years of marriage reduced to 2 people sitting across from each other in a private dining room, surrounded by the wreckage of trust and truth. He was still crying, but I felt nothing. No sympathy. No anger. Just emptiness. Like I'd used up every emotion I had, and there was nothing left. Yvette, he whispered. I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. Yes, you did, I said calmly. Maybe not consciously. Maybe you didn't wake up every morning thinking, how can I devastate my wife today? But every choice you made, every lie you told, every time you chose them over being honest with me, those were choices to hurt me. So don't tell me you never meant to. You meant to enough times that it became a pattern. A lifestyle. What happens now? His voice was small, defeated.
Now?
Now you leave. You go home. Actually, no, you can't go home. That's my home. Simone's home. You need to find somewhere else to stay. Your brother's place, maybe. Or a hotel. I don't really care where. But you can't come back to the house tonight. Yvette. I'm not doing this for revenge, Deshawn. I'm not even doing it because I hate you, though part of me does right now. I'm doing this for clarity. For truth. For Simone, who deserves to see her mother choose self-respect over comfort. For myself, because I deserve a partner who actually values me, who sees me as a whole person and not just a role to be played. I stood up and gathered my purse. The necklace he'd given me earlier, the guilt gift, felt heavy around my neck. I unclasped it and set it on the table. And maybe, in a twisted way, I'm doing this for you too. Because living lies destroys the liar just as much as it destroys everyone around them. Maybe you can't see that now. Maybe you won't see it for months or years. But eventually, you're going to have to face yourself and figure out why you needed 3 separate lives to feel whole. And that's work you have to do alone. I walked to the door, then paused and looked back at him one last time. I loved you, Deshawn. For 12 years, I loved you with everything I had. And that love was real, even if yours wasn't. I'm going to grieve that love. I'm going to grieve the marriage I thought we had. I'm going to grieve the future I thought we were building. But I'm not going to regret exposing the truth. Some tables need to be flipped. And tonight, I flipped yours. I left him sitting there alone in that private dining room, surrounded by 4-place settings and the ghost of 3 separate lies. I walked through the restaurant, past Paolo, who looked concerned, and out into the cool Los Angeles night. And I breathed. For the first time in weeks, I took a full, deep breath. It wasn't relief, exactly. It wasn't happiness. But it was something. It was the first breath of a new life. A harder life, maybe. A more complicated life, definitely. But an honest one. 3 months later, life looks completely different. I'm living in a smaller apartment in Culver City. It's a 2-bedroom, nothing fancy, but it's mine. Well, mine and Simone's half the time. We have joint custody, so she's with me 1 week and with Deshawn the next. That transition was brutal at first. Explaining to my 10-year-old daughter why mommy and daddy weren't living together anymore, why our family was changing, Those were the hardest conversations of my life. But Simone is resilient in ways that surprise me every day. She asks good questions. She processes her feelings out loud. She's in therapy now, talking to a child psychologist who specializes in divorce and family transitions, and it's helping. Some days she's angry. Some days she's sad.
Some days she seems fine.
But she's processing, and that's all I can ask for. The adjustment has been hard but honest. And maybe that's the theme of this new life. Hard but honest. I'm in therapy too, working through my own grief and anger and betrayal. Learning how to trust again. Learning how to forgive myself for the red flags I missed, for the times I chose to believe Deshawn's lies because believing was easier than facing the truth. My therapist keeps reminding me that I'm not responsible for his choices. That I couldn't have prevented this by being different or better or more vigilant. That sometimes people lie because of who they are, not because of who you are. I'm working on believing that. Javon has been a steady presence through all of this. He comes by every week to take Simone out for Uncle Niece time, and he always checks on me too. He's mortified by his brother's behavior, keeps apologizing even though he has nothing to apologize for. He's been the family member I needed, supportive, present, non-judgmental. Work has been my anchor. The teenagers I counsel are dealing with their own messy family situations, and somehow, helping them navigate their pain has helped me navigate mine. There's something healing about being needed, about using your own brokenness to help others piece themselves together. And then there are the surprises. The connections I didn't expect. 2 weeks after the dinner, Rochelle called me. She was nervous, apologetic, but she wanted to meet for coffee. We met at a Starbucks halfway between our neighborhoods, and it was awkward at first. How do you make small talk with your ex-husband's ex-girlfriend? But once we started talking, really talking, the awkwardness faded. We talked about how Deshawn had pursued us both with the same intensity, about the promises he'd made, about how we'd both ignored little inconsistencies because we wanted to believe in the story he was selling, about how we were both getting tested and both dealing with the emotional aftermath of discovering we'd been deceived. We're not best friends. We probably never will be, but there's a mutual respect there. A shared understanding. We text occasionally, usually just to check in or share resources, therapists, support groups, articles about healing from infidelity. It's a strange kind of friendship, born from shared devastation, but it's real. Tabitha took a different approach. She sent me a card about a month after the dinner. It was simple, elegant, very her. Inside, she'd written, "Thank you for the truth, even though it hurt like hell. I hope you and your daughter are healing. You're stronger than you know." I saved that card. I keep it on my fridge, actually. Some days, when the grief feels overwhelming, I look at it and remember that I did the right thing. That truth, even painful truth, is better than living in a beautiful lie. As for Deshawn, he moved in with his parents initially. He's supposedly in therapy now, working on his issues. He sees Simone every other weekend and one evening during the week. He's trying to rebuild that relationship, and I'll give him credit, he's been consistent with his custody time. He shows up when he says he will. He calls her every night before bed. He's being the father she needs, or at least he's trying to be. Whether he's actually changed, whether he's actually doing the internal work necessary to understand why he did what he did, I don't know. And honestly, it's not my problem anymore. He's Simone's father, and he needs to be present for her. But he's not my husband. He's not my partner. He's not my concern. The divorce is moving forward. It's messy and expensive and exhausting, but it's happening. Keisha is fighting for me like the warrior she is, and we're on track for everything to be finalized by the end of the year. The hardest lesson I've learned through all of this is that closure isn't a moment. It's not something that happens all at once, like a switch being flipped. Closure is a process. It's waking up every day and choosing yourself again. It's feeling the grief, the anger, the betrayal, and then choosing to move forward anyway. Some days I'm angry. I'm furious at Deshawn for what he did, for what he destroyed, for the years I can't get back. Some days I'm sad. I grieve the marriage I thought I had, the family I thought we were, the future I thought we were building. Some days I feel betrayed all over again, Like I'm discovering the affair fresh, and the pain is just as sharp. But some days, and these days are becoming more frequent, I feel free. Free from the anxiety of not knowing what was real. Free from the exhausting work of maintaining a relationship with someone who is only half present. Free from the weight of someone else's lies. I'm building a new life, and it's smaller in some ways but bigger in others. Smaller apartment, smaller budget, smaller circle. But bigger honesty, bigger authenticity, bigger sense of self. I'm learning who Yvette is when she's not performing the role of wife. I'm rediscovering hobbies I'd let go. I'm making new friends. I'm focusing on my career in ways I couldn't when I was managing a household and a marriage. I'm showing Simone what it looks like to rebuild after devastation. And I'm working on forgiveness. Not for Deshawn, not yet, maybe not ever. But for myself. For the time I lost. For the red flags I ignored because I wanted to believe in us. For the denial I lived in because facing the truth was terrifying. That's the real work. Forgiving yourself for being human. For trusting someone who didn't deserve it. For staying longer than you should have. For not knowing what you couldn't have known. My therapist says I'm doing the work. She says healing isn't linear, that setbacks are normal, that some days I'll feel like I'm right back at the beginning. And she's right. This isn't a straight line from devastation to triumph. It's a messy, winding path with backslides and breakthroughs and everything in between. But I'm walking it. One day at a time. One step at a time. And that's enough. So let me tell you what I learned from all of this, because if you're listening to this story, maybe you need to hear it too. Betrayal reveals character. Not just the betrayers, but your own. When Deshawn cheated, when he lied, when he built 3 separate lives, that revealed who he was. But how I responded, what I chose to do with that information, that revealed who I am. I could have confronted him privately. I could have filed for divorce quietly and moved on without the spectacle. I could have protected his reputation, kept the details private, made it easy for him to save face. A lot of people would say that would have been the dignified thing to do, the classy thing. But I chose transparency. I chose to bring his 3 separate worlds together in one room and let the truth explode in real time. And yes, it was messy. Yes, some people called me petty. Some said I was cruel, vindictive, attention-seeking. Others called me a hero, an inspiration, a queen. But I don't need anyone's approval or condemnation. I call myself a woman who refused to carry someone else's shame. Because that's what quiet divorces are often about, protecting the person who hurt you from facing the full consequences of their actions. Carrying their shame, so they don't have to. And I decided I wasn't going to do that. The 3-woman dinner wasn't about revenge, though I won't pretend revenge wasn't part of the satisfaction. It was about breaking the isolation that affairs create. Deshawn kept us all separate because that's where his power lived. In the separation. In the compartmentalization. In each of us believing we were the only one, or in my case, believing I was the only legitimate one. Bringing us together destroyed that power. It gave Rochelle and Tabitha information they deserved to have. It gave me witnesses to his lies. It forced him to face all of us at once and reckon with the full scope of his deception. Was it uncomfortable? Absolutely. Was it painful?
God, yes.
Would I do it again? In a heartbeat. Because some truths need to be told in the light. Some lies need to be exposed publicly. Not for punishment, not for humiliation, but for liberation. For breaking the chains of secrecy that keep everyone trapped in false realities. If you're watching this and you're suspecting infidelity, let me tell you something. Trust your instincts. That gut feeling you're having? That sense that something's off? That's your intuition screaming at you to pay attention. Don't ignore it. Don't talk yourself out of it. Don't let anyone gaslight you into believing you're crazy or paranoid or insecure. Document everything. Take screenshots. Check statements. Look for patterns. And when you have the evidence you need, decide how you want to handle it. Maybe that's a quiet divorce. Maybe that's couples therapy. Maybe that's a dramatic dinner where you blow up their entire world. Whatever you choose, make sure it's your choice. Not what other people think you should do. Not what's most convenient or least embarrassing. but what serves your truth and your healing. And remember, you deserve honesty. You deserve fidelity. You deserve a partner who sees you as a whole person, not a role to be played or a need to be met. You deserve someone who chooses you every single day, not just when it's convenient. But also, hear this. Healing isn't linear. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to have days where you're furious and days where you're grieving and days where you feel nothing at all. It's okay to miss the person you thought they were while being angry at the person they actually are. It's okay to question whether you made the right choice. It's okay to feel lost and found in the same breath. That's all part of the process. The messy, non-linear, 2 steps forward, 1 step back process of putting yourself back together after someone else broke you. And if you're watching this and you're the person cheating, stop. Just stop. The truth always comes out. Always. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually someone's going to find that text message or notice that charge or put together the pieces you thought you'd hidden so well. And when it comes out, and it will come out, you're not just going to lose your partner. You're going to lose your integrity, your reputation, the respect of people who matter, the trust of your children, the person you see in the mirror. Is it worth it? Is the temporary excitement, the ego boost, the thrill of getting away with something, is any of that worth destroying the people who trusted you? I know what you'll say. You'll say it's complicated. You'll say you were lonely, or your needs weren't being met, or you made a mistake. But here's the thing. Those are reasons, not excuses. Everyone gets lonely, sometimes. Everyone has unmet needs. The difference is some people communicate about those needs, and others cheat. Choose communication. Choose honesty. Choose ending the relationship if you're that unhappy. But don't choose deception. Don't build elaborate houses of cards thinking they'll never collapse. Because they always do. Always. And if you're one of the people being lied to about someone's relationship status, if you're a Shell or Tabitha in someone else's story, you deserve to know the truth too. You're not the other woman. You're not a homewrecker. You're a victim of the same deception. And when you find out the truth, however that happens, you get to decide how to respond. You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to walk away. You're allowed to reach out to the wife or husband if you want to. Or you're allowed to walk away quietly and heal in private. Whatever serves your peace. My name is Yvette Patterson. I'm 37 years old. I'm a high school counselor, a mother, a friend, a sister. I'm a woman rebuilding her life after 12 years of marriage ended in the most spectacular way possible. I invited my husband's 2 mistresses to our anniversary dinner. I let them all meet. I exposed every lie in real time and watched his carefully constructed worlds collide. And I'd do it again. Not because I'm vindictive. Not because I'm cruel. But because some tables need to be flipped. Some lies need to be dragged into the light. Some truths need to be told, no matter how uncomfortable they make everyone. Because living in truth, even painful, messy, devastating truth, is better than living in a beautiful lie. And if my story helps even one person trust their instincts, demand honesty, or walk away from a situation that's diminishing them, then every uncomfortable moment of that dinner was worth it. So here's my final ask. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think or feel or question something in your own life, leave a comment below. Tell me your thoughts. Share your own story if you want to. Let's build a community of people who choose truth over comfort, who refuse to carry other people's shame, who believe that we all deserve partners who see us and choose us and value us. Hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel. Because I'm going to keep telling stories, my story and others, about rebuilding after betrayal, about choosing yourself, about the messy, beautiful work of healing. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And remember, you deserve honesty. You deserve respect. You deserve a love that doesn't require you to be a detective in your own relationship. Some tables need to be flipped. And maybe today, you'll find the courage to flip yours.